Welcome into Leveraging Your Reality, where mindset meets movement. I'm Shavon Camper, your partner in growth as you become a healthier you, a healthier parent, a healthier spouse, and a healthier leader. Well, May is mental health awareness month, and today I want to take some time to talk about one of the top topics that I hear as a coach in the mental wellness space, and that is the topic of anxiety. Everyone is coming, I have anxiety, I'm having anxious moments, like anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. It gets so much talk, this topic of anxiety. And it is, quite frankly, one of the top reasons that people seek help is for anxiety. When a client, one, let's just first look at anxiety is sadness amplified. Sorry, that's depression. Depression is sadness amplified. Anxiety is worry amplified. And there's a scale. So, on the scale of being anxious, right, there are parts of the scale that are experiences of anxiety. Then you get to a part of the scale where it gets into a clinical level of anxiety. Clinical levels of anxiety are handled with therapists, psychiatrists. You go into that realm. The things that I talk about here will be more so to deal with the scale that flows below the clinical levels. Not saying they can't be applied to clinical levels, but what I'm saying is seek a professional if you are at very extreme high levels of anxiety that falls into the clinical level. Now, one thing to note is that a lot of times people are personalizing anxiety. My anxiety, it's mine. And you think about it, anything that belongs to us, we don't typically want to get rid of it. I think one of the steps in allowing yourself to like move beyond anxiety is you don't have to claim it as your own. I am having a moment of anxiety. I am experiencing anxiety versus my anxiety is really getting to me. Because when we personalize it like that, we put ourselves in a position to have it around all the time, and we normalize it being around all the time. Something else to note when it comes to anxiety is that focusing on anxiety doesn't make anxiety decrease. Because essentially that's what we want anxiety to decrease, and we also want it to come out and show up in appropriate times. And what happens for people is their anxiety is showing up in times where anxiety isn't necessary to be there. And when people want to move beyond anxiety, a tip, like somebody comes to me for anxiety, we first question I ask is, hey, if your anxiety decreased, it was at the lowest level or not even there, what would increase? I'll give an example. Peace. Oh, so if you had less anxiety, you would have more peace. Yes, I want peace. In coaching, we would actually put most of our focus on peace. Because whatever you give attention and energy to, it grows. So if you keep focusing on the anxiety, my anxiety, you're keeping anxiety top of mind, even though that's not what you want to be top of mind. So if you want to get rid of something, you actually need to focus on the thing that you want to replace it with. So you give it something else, give yourself something else to focus on. So if now peace is the new focus, then we have conversations around proactively bringing peace into your life. And naturally, if you bring more peace into your life, the anxiety has less room and space to exist. It's one tip in handling anxiety. Focus on what you want to be bringing more of into your life versus getting rid of the anxiety. And that's what you read books on. That's what you do your research on. Doing more and more research and focusing more on the topic of anxiety doesn't typically help people to get rid of anxiety. Doing research on anxiety can help you understand anxiety, but it doesn't help you move past it. This brings up another point. I have a lot of clients come to me and they say, "Wow, like we've made a lot of progress on this anxiety. I haven't made this type of progress in therapy." Again, I'm referring to below clinical levels of anxiety when I talk about this. I think something you all have to keep in mind is the purpose of therapy and the purpose of coaching, they're different. When one goes to therapy about anxiety, it is to get deeper understanding about the anxiety, which triggering the anxiety, the history of the anxiety, and to learn ways of coping with the anxiety in today's existence. That's because therapy is more of a present and future based approach. Sorry, present and past based approach is therapy. That's why when you go to therapy, you understand your anxiety more, the history of it, what triggers it, how to cope with it. Now, when you're ready to move beyond coping and to create something beyond being anxious, that's when you come on into coaching. And coaching is more of that focus of present and future based. So in coaching, we don't talk about the history of the anxiety. We actually talk about, hey, what is the present state that you want to have? Peace. So we're working toward peace in coaching, not getting rid of anxiety. So I think that's something to note is that once you understand your anxiety, where it's coming from, what the triggers are, and how to cope with it, and if from there you want to do something more about your anxiety, it's more appropriate for you to come into the coaching space than to stay in the therapeutic space, because the therapeutic space doesn't necessarily send you forward. Coaching sends you forward. Just note to all those that have been in therapy for anxiety for more than 2 years, it's probably time to graduate that topic over into coaching. All right. Now, the other piece around anxiety is an emotion in a more elevated form. We talked about it's worry. Sometimes, a lot of times, we're trying to like ignore our emotions, and our emotions serve a purpose. So, usually, the emotions we're trying to ignore are the lower vibrating ones: sad, mad, angry. But the whole purpose of our emotions is to let us know what we need. So when anxiety is coming to visit you, it's not your enemy. It's there indicating that you have a need for something. Something's missing that you need. And that's literally the purpose of emotions, is to let us know what we need. And a lot of times we're so busy trying to push away, push away that we don't take time to understand, like, why is this anxiety visiting me? What do I lack that anxiety is encouraging me to get? So as opposed to like, I need to get rid of it, it's more so this is a support for me, anxiety. Whenever it comes up, something's out of alignment, something's missing, and I need to be intentional about figuring out what is missing in my needs that is making anxiety come and come at full force. Once you get down to the levels of identifying your needs, then you get to move through the emotion versus getting stuck in the emotion. So many people get stuck in emotions because the emotion won't leave. Since we're here, let me give you, I have a whole analogy for this. Think about car dashboard. The whole purpose of the car dashboard is to let you know what's going on in the parts of the car that are not visible to you. It lets you know what the car needs. And there are parts of the car dashboard that are pretty straightforward. If you have a gas car, when the gas light comes on, it means go get gas. The car is in need of gas. There are other parts of the indicators that are less direct, like the check engine light. When that comes on, you don't really know what's wrong with the car. The car needs a diagnostic ran on it. That's more how our emotional dashboard works. In our emotional dashboard, we have to do diagnostics to understand what the need of ourself is. So some of us are walking around with emotional dashboards that are just lit up. The lights have been on for years. We haven't done anything about the lights. And if we flip it back over to a car, if you leave your check engine light on, the car will still drive for a while. But what happens is the car performs less and less optimally over time. It's the same for your emotional dashboard. You could leave all those lights on, but you will perform less and less optimally over time. And this is why it's so important to begin to one, recognize that you have an emotional dashboard, and two, really look at how do I take care of the unmet needs that are presenting themselves. I'll give you a quick exercise that comes from nonviolent communication. It is first to identify what is the emotion that you're experiencing. I have my clients take a situation and identify the top three emotions. And note, our vocabulary of emotions is pretty low just because it's not a topic that we're formally educated on. So usually there are about 10 to 15 emotions that come to mind very quickly for people. But in order to get an appropriate diagnostic, you have to consider all the emotions that are available. So for this part, I recommend people to Google or look up a feelings wheel. And when you look up that feelings wheel, it should have clearly over 30 emotions. And that's what we're working with. If the check engine light comes on and you go to change a tire, light won't go off. Similar with the emotional dashboard. If you mislabel what the actual emotion is that's happening, the lights won't begin to turn off. All right. So take that feelings wheel and choose top three emotions that you're experiencing. Write them down on a paper. From here, the next step is to go through this journey of digging deeper within yourself to question. And here are the prompts. I feel sad. That's where you put in your emotion. I feel X, so I need Y. And in this need part, for those of you that are not clear on what are examples of needs, go back to your search engine and look up, give me a list of needs. It's going to be a whole list of needs. Some needs that you may have not even used before or recognized, like that's a need. Yes, so many times we struggle because we lack knowledge and information on topics that we deal with every day. Emotions, whether you talk about it or not, you deal with it every day. Needs, whether you talk about it or not, you deal with it every day. Let's educate ourselves and expand our acumen of the topic of emotions and needs. So go to that needs list and put in the need. I feel X, so I need Y. Once you put in the need, it's a period. The next part is this need being met looks like, and this is where you fill in the next blank. Describe what having the need met looks like, because how one person describes a need being met could look different from how you might describe it being met. So it's really important for you to describe how it's being met. There's an asterisk here. When you go to describe what it looks like for this need to be met, it is a common trap for people to tie their needs into other people. It means my spouse doing this. It means the kids doing that. It means my boss doing this. If all your needs are wrapped up in what other people need to do, you can stay in a constant state of need because you're waiting for other people to make adjustments in order to get your needs met. So just keep that in clear mind. Have your needs be focused on things that you can actually do something about. Otherwise, you're just going to be waiting for other people to change. That may never change. All right. So I feel, so I need, this need being met looks like. Once you do that for all three emotions, what you will end up with is action steps. Go do the things. Go get those needs met. And as you meet those needs, you'll notice those lights will get dimmer. And at some point, they will turn off. And something like anxiety will visit less frequency, and peace will show up more often because you're actually taking care of yourself. All right. Remember, growth is not always easy. It's rarely easy. But when you're doing it in partnership with others, it becomes a lot more possible. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone who needs the message, because we don't grow alone, we grow together. Until next time, keep showing up and keep leveraging your reality.